Hi guys, I'm Danny, and I started a Sunday gym because I've noticed lately that people tend to go to colleges and universities without actually knowing why they're there. And afterwards, starting jobs that are unfulfilling. So I'm interviewing different professionals to see what they have to say and share their knowledge and experience with you. I hope you enjoy it. Right on,
Perfect.
Christopher. Thanks for being with me. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
All good, all good. The program will be focused on three main questions. What do you do for a living? How did you get there? How did you know this was the way to go? So that's what you do for a living, please.
All right. So I am a law firm owner. So I'm a lawyer. I own my own law firm, and we've grown from a staff of three people to about 18 to 19 people so far. So yeah, it's been a real journey. So I think the real meat of it's probably going to be in that middle question, honestly, on how do you get there.
Yeah, no, how long did it took you to get from three people to 18 people?
So we've been open 7.5 years so far.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, we started with three practice areas, so doing family law, estate planning, and personal injury, and have niched down into just personal injury. But since then have grown with support staff and other attorneys and things like that as well.
Pretty good. Now, here in Southern Europe, I don't know how things are in the United States, but here in Southern Europe, there are three type of professions you can't really neglect. Meaning, if you study that 24/7, you're doing that.
Yep.
The doctors, lawyers, and engineers. Everything else, I finished international business administration. So
Uh-huh.
I was able to work as a bartender. I worked at Subway. You can work, right?
Yeah.
When
Yep.
you but if you in those three professions, you cannot. It's deliberately made that way so that
Uh-huh.
the full attention can be there. Meaning that once you graduate one of those three things, first of all, once you're there, you already know why you're there. You,
Right.
you, you can be an accountant by accident. You
Sure.
can be a financial planner by accident. I
Right.
have never seen someone who was like, well, I was a doctor by accident. Man, you have to study for like 12 years. You
Yes.
don't do that by accident. So,
Yep.
how old were you when you knew that this was, that you'll be doing this?
Yeah, so I was 35 actually whenever I went. So here in
You
the
look 35 right now, to be honest.
Oh, you're way too nice. You're way too nice. So I'm 49 now. And so I've been at 35. Law school is 3 years. And then you've got the bar exam after. Ended up taking the bar exam twice, not by choice, but taking it twice. So then graduated and then finally became an attorney right around 40. And so yeah, it was its own journey. Ended up having to do that so I live in Colorado. Out of Colorado, I went to Ohio to do it. My wife and kids stayed here in Colorado while I went. And but yeah, at 35, kind of just had a life shift. I thought I had figured out what I wanted to be whenever I grew up before that, which was a school teacher. So I was an elementary school teacher before that.
Nice.
And then I was teaching and waiting tables. So like you're saying, bartender.
Yeah.
Uh, so I waited tables in Las Vegas and other places, and then was doing it part time at night. And then I worked in retail in Vegas as well. So I'm a big proponent of, I honestly think that all people should work retail or restaurants at some
Yeah.
point. I think there's a customer service component that goes along with how do we talk to other humans? How can we provide exceptional guest service? Things like that that are really, really important.
I couldn't agree more. There's a story, I think I've shared it a few times, but so again, when you study economics, at least here, you are kind of obligated to work because you're supposed to study it, but you also have to understand real life taxes and everything.
Mhm.
So I was working as a bartender, and a lot of professors are actually visiting me to check how I'm doing, right? Those guys were really loving that Guinness. And one time we were 150, 160 people, students. And he called me, "Hey, Danny, come here," in front of everyone. Just looked at me with a nasty gaze. So, is there a reason yesterday you look like a homeless person?
Oh,
I was 17, maybe 18, and they were
right.
150. Well, like, what are you talking about? You weren't shaved and your shoes were dirty.
Yep.
Okay, listen, first of all, I slept a little bit more and it was raining. It was raining for everybody. Your
Uh-huh.
shoes were dirty. Yeah, people should weren't. What
Ooh.
was that about? Since that, and that was more than 15 years ago. ever since that, I'm always clean shit, and my shoes are they're like a mirror, man. That have
Right,
never happened before. It
right.
builds character. It wasn't nice to be honest, because I was 17, 18, but you know, and that hit good, and it's better to hit back like that in a control environment.
Oh,
Because being a bartender, tables and everything, you're gonna, be meeting some nasty people. But again, it's a
absolutely.
control environment. You're
Yes.
not out there in the war, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it teaches you. I think of it like I'm a big baseball fan, and so kind of like the New York Yankees, right? When you go to the Yankees, you've got to be clean shaven. They have a certain look that they expect. They
Right.
don't have full beards or anything like that, like other places. And so it's one of those things, though. I think even at a young age, it teaches you here's how we're going to show up and present, right?
Yeah.
There's, for me, I always thought about it like there's two paths that you can take in those moments. I can learn from this constructive feedback, or I can take it as a personal attack. And I
Yeah.
think for myself, when I was younger, I always took it as a personal attack. Like it was like this, hey,
Everybody
they're
did.
coming at me, right? You know what I mean? But I think as we
Oh
get
yeah,
older,
I know what you mean.
as we get older, we start kind of actually self-reflecting a little bit and going, wait a minute, what value? And maybe they're right a little bit. And what can we take? How can we learn and grow from that? And I think it's super important.
Absolutely. No, and back then I took it as a personal attack. I've
Uh-huh.
got friends of mine. I've been blessed to have tremendous friends, much older than I, and one of them were like, "So the guy obviously cares about you." And I, how does that get? If he doesn't, he never
Yeah.
would have said a thing. He would have just
Right.
cut you look like a homeless person.
Right.
But he did, and not like he killed you or anything. Yeah, he was a little bit rough, but
Sure.
people were like that, and there's nothing wrong
Right.
with it.
Right.
I want to talk to you about my third question.
Sure.
Is how did you knew that this was the way to go? You're a pretty good example because you're already an adult. Okay, this wasn't your parents. You were already married. You had family, everything.
Yeah.
It's not like your parents just shoved you in college, right?
Yeah.
Now, the reason I actually started this whole thing is first I thought it was just for Europe, then it turns out it wasn't. It's an issue, and people go to colleges and universities because they have that stigma. Get
Yeah.
the diploma, and your life will be so easier. It will be walk in a park.
Yeah.
And honestly, man, I don't think I've ever met someone whose life is just a walk in a park just because they have a diploma.
Yeah.
Maybe that was true about 30 years ago, probably 40, but
Yeah.
I don't think that even then was like that. Yeah, that stigma remains. Now, you are from the US here in Europe, education is like dirt cheap. Like we have a few expensive universities, but most of them are like I graduated a private college and I actually paid it with my bartender salary.
Oh,
And I even had, money to spend.
yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I was about to start PhD this year. I didn't because I had some personal issues. If
Sure.
I did, it would have been about 500 euro per year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's 520 US dollars a year.
Wow.
So they're
That's
cheaper.
phenomenal. Yes.
Yeah, man, you can't even buy cigarettes for that much money.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. But my issue was never with the money because I mean I've lost money. I'm pretty sure you've lost money
Yeah.
somewhere,
Oh, yeah.
somehow. We lose friends, we lose relationships. It's part of life. Now my
Sure.
problem is with the time because when you get a 18, 19, 20-year-old young adult, those aren't kids in my book.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they're young adults, and you lose 4, 5, sometimes 6 years of their life. They're getting out of university. First of all, some of them shouldn't, and I'm not insulting people. That's not what I'm doing here. But they get the first thing that they're able to get to,
Yeah.
as what to study. It's clearly not for them. They're miserable. Then they start working at it because chances are you will get a job with it. And people are just being miserable, losing their time. That's an issue. I think it's a pretty solid problem. Nobody talking about it. So that's why I actually started. And you were actually an adult. You had family, you had everything. And yet you decided to go with that. And that's a very specific
Yeah.
destination that you've chosen.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it a gut feeling? Were you influenced by something? How did you decide to go there? What was
Yeah.
the
So I kind of backtracked just a little bit because when I was 18, like you were saying, I'm the oldest of four kids, and I'm the only one in my family to have any college. So any university, anything post, because I thought that's got to be the way, kind of like what you were
yeah.
saying. So I've got my undergrad in communications with a minor in film. And so I finished my 4 years, and then I think to myself, the world is just going to open up and there's going to be a line of people offering me jobs left and right whenever I get my degree, just like what you said.
I know the feeling, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh my God, goodness, what happened? So in communications, I end up getting a job at a local TV station in Las Vegas. I do nighttime audio, I do some other things. Great job, but the pay is terrible. So like you're talking about the ROI for what I paid for university versus how much I was making, it was pretty bad. So then I actually went back into retail management instead because I had a wife and two kids, and so I needed something that paid more. And and so ultimately then ended up getting a teaching degree, just through a sub program. But then that did not kind of work the way we wanted to. So life throws you curveballs and you have to pivot and you have to pivot quickly if you want to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
So then at 35, it was a thing where I think I gauged at that age, I was like, what kind of a degree could I get that would actually provide a good ROI? And, I had friends that were doctors and dentists and anesthesiologists and things like that, but that track would have taken so much longer.
Yeah.
Where a 3-year law degree, to me, it was a time value because my girls were in junior high getting ready for high school. And so getting ready for their final years. So I needed something that could kind of move a little quicker. Now, I will say one of the things I've realized is that the university itself can have some benefit and value of teaching kids when they're younger to show up each day, complete a task, you know what I mean, and be responsible for X or Y.
Absolutely. I'm not trashing
However, yeah, no, no,
institutions
no.
in general.
Yeah. But I do think, just like what you're saying, at least in the States here, you've got usually, right, your 4 years bachelor's. I think getting those 2 years foundationally, and then if you don't know what to do, it's okay because none of us know what to do at 20 or 21. And so it's all right. Then step back for a little bit, experience some life, try some different things out, and then go forward and finish, in your specialty that you're looking for. I think would kind of be some of my thoughts on it because I think it's not a bad thing to have the degree because it teaches certain functional skills, also like on how to present in class and how to talk to people and how to, what I mean, join a group or what have you. But that can be very expensive. It can be an expensive thing that you could get just from joining like a private club or something like that through Facebook or what have you. And so yeah, so for us, it was more of a shift from at 35 of a life necessity kind of pushing and to pivot and really looking at the true return on investment. Because I will tell you, like law school in the States, crazy expensive. And it's one of those things where you've got to make sure then that as the years pass, that you can get a true ROI to take care of the student loans and things like that.
Yeah, I actually, I think I know one person with student loans. I don't think I know more than that, but
Wow.
yeah, like things are like that here. So you get to university or college, depends on what you've applied. Yeah, you can cover the 2 years that are like basics,
Mhm.
and you can drop off, but you have to return, I think, in 5 or 6 years. So you have, which is, pretty acceptable.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that idea. Just because then too, it gives you kind of a piece where you can go out because I do think a lot of it's the life experiences that you can
Yeah.
put yourself into, and kind of I think if you can get out and force yourself to go try some things, And so for us, whenever I applied for the bar exam out here to become an attorney, they have you fill out all of your jobs your prior jobs and employment that you've had. And mine was over 5 pages long because I had worked 50 million different jobs, from working at a Wendy's, a fast food place to, retail and restaurants and the TV station. But
Subway.
yeah, you do what you can just to make ends
Yeah.
meet and get by. But it's those experiences, though, that ultimately shape me into the business leader that I am today and the attorney that I am today and things like that.
No, that's definitely important because you really need a lot of basic experience. I hope I'm making sense because yes, it's a day-to-day activity, but it's somehow different all the time. I worked at Subway. I didn't work at Subway for a long time. I was a bartender for 2.5 years, and then I was at Subway for a couple of months, I think.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you learn stuff, and it's enough to. Then I moved to Denmark. I finished my master's degree over there, and that was pretty good because we actually the first group project that we had was about fast food restaurants.
Mhm.
So that was pretty useful. I had no idea,
Yeah.
of course, this would happen, but
Right.
you it's not a bad it's not a bad thing to have all those jobs. I had talked to people, not recently though, but we had a conversation. Don't put the bartender and the subway thing in LinkedIn because you don't want people to know that I was working and I got paid. I wasn't a peasant in a medieval
Right.
castle. Like,
Right.
what's wrong with you?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. And I think it's so there's a podcast that I like from this. It's called Hidden Brain, and Shankar
Send me the
Vedanta.
link. I can put it in the
Yeah.
description.
And I'll send you a link to this one
Yeah.
TED talk that he did. The host, he does this talk, and it's basically this idea that who you are today is not who you're going to be down the road. And it's one of my favorite talks because the reality is we all think that like when you're that bartender, that I'm just gonna this, I've already got it all figured out, right? And the reality is we don't, and I've heard a talk about this study where people talk to, there's a study done where they talk to a group of 18-year-olds and they say, how much are you going to change in the next 10 years? And they're like, man, we're adults now. We've got life figured out. Everything's good. Well,
Don't
then they
blame them.
same group at 28 and they're like, how much have you changed since you were 18? And they're like, holy cow, we had no idea who we were. Now they take a different group at 40 and they go, how much do you think you're going to change in the next 10 years? They're like, look, man, I've gone through 18. I was a kid. I've had a family. I've had multiple jobs. I've gotten a degree or what have you. I'm pretty good. I'm a grown up at 40 now, right? Now they talk to that same group at 50 and they ask them, how much have you changed over the last 10 years? And they're like, holy cow, you have no idea how much I've changed. So the reality is, I think we're constantly in this state of change, right?
Yeah.
We just don't see it, but we have to kind of accept it and go, I'm okay changing. As long as, to me at least, as long as we're benefiting and leveling up, I think then that's the best way that we can kind of keep moving forward.
100%. That it's a bit of a cliche question. Like, what would you tell your 18-year-old version? But I wouldn't even talk to that guy. That was a terrible, terrible, miserable. No, I wasn't miserable. I was actually pretty happy, but
Yeah.
I mean, because
Yeah.
I was a bartender, I had my own place. It was good, but Lord, I was such an obnoxious little weasel. But yeah, I guess it's.
Uh,
The world is insanely dynamic. You know those stories, I'm sure you've heard them. Like when a man gets a job in a factory and 40 years later he retires. I haven't seen that in
no.
my life. I don't think we're ever going to see it because the world is way too dynamic. Nothing guarantees you that the factory will be here for the next 40, 50 years. It's not how it
Right.
works anymore. In
Right.
a matter, I'm actually thankful, and I know how gruesome that sounds, but I am thankful a little bit for COVID because at some point it was way too dynamic and
Yeah.
hitting the brake like that, it was an eye opener for some people.
Absolutely.
I I do believe that we do most of the reflection of our life quiet and in silence and alone without
Right.
distractions. I think a lot of people that were doing the soul searching actually found it during that period. Like, what am
I
I
agree.
doing?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it really helped even situations like this where we can find people and connect via video, via
Yeah.
Zoom across the world. It made the world, even though we were all isolated, we realized that we can use technology to become connected in ways that actually, because we all pined for that connection, right? And I think that definitely is something up. It's a positive that came out of the COVID experience for sure. The ability to hop on and have conversation, to do group meetings, things like that I think really, really helped out quite a bit.
Well, you're preaching to the choir here because I'm an old school gamer. Like, my life didn't change a lot during
Yeah,
COVID. I
yeah,
have a guild in Germany on Star Wars: The Old Republic, so we,
nice.
we don't even know one another's names, but we know the voices
Yeah,
because we've been doing so.
that is awesome.
I,
No, I
I
mean,
actually had all the equipment for the podcast because of that.
oh, that is so great. Yeah, no, and I mean, I play on PS5, but yeah, it's definitely something too that's a better, it's a joy, and I think you've got to have those hobbies and things too that can take you out of your day to day.
Yeah.
It can be really, really helpful and beneficial there for you too.
I have a fourth question, and I'm never listing it in the
Okay,
invitation. Although, if you've seen one episode, you know good and well what it is.
sure.
I know you can talk for hours about it, but at the top of your head, if you can give one advice to my audience are mostly people that are in that situation. Is this job for me? Am I studying something that's for me? What am I doing here? If you can give those people one advice, what will it be?
Yeah, I would say it's find community and a mentor. Because as you do that, because I think we're in those situations with those questions, right? I
Yeah,
think you feel alone a lot of times. You feel like you're the person on an island and that you're the only one
yeah.
struggling with this question. And so I think it's massively important to find a community, to find people to talk to. I tell people all the time, you can find me on, and I'll give you all the links to my social
Please do.
out, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about it because it is a journey. But if you're struggling with things in your head, like what do I do with my life? How can I find resources? What have you? Trust me, there are hundreds of thousands of people that have gone through it too. And I
Probably
promise
more.
you, you're not alone. And the only way we can all get better is by communicating and talking and finding that community and sharing ideas. And it's the idea too that it's at times when you're here, it can feel hard to sit at a table or start a conversation with people up here. But honestly, that's the room you want to be in because those are the if you're in a room where you're here and other people are here too, you're all just on the same level. So I think you really want to look for rooms, within that community or those mentors that are achieving, a step above you. And they can help you kind of achieve that. So I'd say find community and find mentors would be my biggest piece of advice.
That's a pretty good advice. Now, I knew what I was going to study. I knew what I was going to graduate and what I was going to do for a living at the tender age of 16.
Yeah.
All my friends are like that. All my family is like that.
Yep.
So growing up, I thought that the whole world was like that.
Hmm.
And you know, the first administrative job that I had, basically everybody was like that. But when I moved, because it's time after 3, 4 years, it's time to switch to see the world.
Yep.
Then I moved to HP, and Lord have mercy. I mean, I was in a financial department, but one of them was a journalist, the other one was
Yep.
IT. I'm like, what is going on here? And I started talking to actually that professor of mine that did the whole not being shaven.
Yes. Yes.
We're friends. We talked.
Nice.
We were actually colleagues at some time later
Uh-huh.
on. So because most of the professors that we have aren't like real professors, they're like professionals and they just teach
Nice.
it.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more practical and it bears fruits. And I gave him a call and I said, "What is going on in here?" He said, "Yeah, actually, that's almost everywhere. That's almost always."
Wow.
Why isn't anyone talking about it? That's pretty stupid. He said, well, I was wondering the same thing for about 15 years. And
Yep.
then I stopped wondering, oh, Lord, you little weasel. So that's that's actually one of the reasons I started this whole thing. But yeah, you're completely right. People are not alone. And mine is a positive example, but even the negative example, when you have those negative feelings, definitely, you're not alone. A lot of people, way more than you can possibly imagine, are struggling with the same thing.
Absolutely. No, and I think that those are the moments like when you're struggling, I think those are the moments to reach out.
Yeah.
Those are the moments to not let it sit here. I'm a huge fan of Dan Millman, who wrote Way of the Peaceful Warrior, the book, and he's got a whole book series, but he talks about this idea like when you're feeling those negative thoughts, there's a quote in his book and it's let it flow. So feel it, but then you've got to let it go. Because if we just sit in it, it's not going to help us at all. And
Yeah.
so you got to be able to let it flow and then move on. And I think it's really important that then the way to kind of help move on is through that community, through talking to people. And it can be both via Zoom, it can be via phone call, text, email, but it also can just be in a chat.
Yeah.
It can be starting a conversation. There's many different ways to do that these days. So I think it's a really, really good way to help yourself through the muck and the mire.
No, I couldn't agree more. And with that said, Christopher, many thanks for being with me, man. I really appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having me.
Please don't forget to send me all of the links because I really want them down there. So, it'd be easier for people to, and I can tag you on LinkedIn, Facebook, everywhere.
Yeah,
So, people can reach out.
definitely. Thanks, man. I appreciate being on.
Right on. Have a nice day.
Yep.
Guys, I hope this one was useful. Please follow the channel on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Gap, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Ring the bell and all the good stuff. Have a nice week ahead, and I'll see you next Sunday.